Play clock at 5.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal. So White. He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his 5th. What a comeback.
This is All Eyes on the Pats podcast.
Welcome to another episode of All Eyes on the Pats podcast. I'm your host, Steve Atkinson, and I'm going to literally just do post-draft thoughts for the how the Patriots did, and my thoughts about how they selected a quarterback in the later, in the 4th round again, like they did in 2019 with Jarrett Stidham, and why I think Jarrett Stidham is probably out the door as a member of the New England Patriots. But first, I want to start by literally going over, the Patriots draft class. Starting with round 1, they selected Cole Strange, the offensive lineman. He was which is pretty good because they lost Ted Karras and Shaq Mason. They needed someone to fill that gap. And even though they traded down, from 21, and they lost two cornerbacks, they kind of made up for it in Friday and Saturday, picking 2 corners. So, Thursday night I was pissed because they traded down to, draft an offensive lineman, Cole Strange, but then they made it up. Marcus Jones and Jack Jones, 2 corners there. They also drafted in the 2nd round. They traded from 54 to 50, and they took Tyquan Thornton, the wide receiver, who was the fastest guy in the combine. He ran a 4.28, and he could pretty much go over the middle, apparently. I'm not going to pretend I know who he is. I don't watch college football, so I'm not going to pretend and say, who he is and whatever, because I don't watch college football. So, but apparently he's fast from what I've read. And he can go over the middle. So maybe there's your Edelman fill-in. He could be your 3rd wide receiver if he, you have Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne. And if he beats out Nelson Aguilar, well, there's your over the middle guy. There's your 3, and then maybe Nelson Aguilar is 4. So maybe that's the competition there. It seems like N'Keal Harry and Jarrett Stidham are both gone, apparently. It seems like N'Keal Harry's on the trading block anyway. He's not participating in off-season workouts, posting pictures on Instagram. Looks like he's on vacation or something. So doesn't look good for N'Keal Harry. And honestly, it's a busted draft pick from Bill Belichick in 2019. I mean, he, and the one thing they didn't do was pick any linebackers. They picked 3 defensive linemen in the later part in the draft: Sam Roberts, Chasen Hines, and Andrew Stuber. 1 defensive lineman and 2 other offensive linemen. I'm sorry. So Chasen Hines is the offensive lineman, and Andrew Stuber is an offensive lineman. Sorry if I pronounced that name wrong. And then Sam Roberts, defensive lineman. So they really got 2 more guys to protect Mac Jones, and that's good. I mean, you need to protect your quarterback. I'm disappointed that they didn't get a teammate of Mac Jones. John Mechie went to the Texans, I think. So I'm kind of disappointed that that the Patriots, didn't get John Mechie or someone, that Mac went to school with. But it's good that as a wide receiver. But it's good that they did get a fast wide receiver. They did also got a fast running back in Pierre Strong. Again, I'm not going to pretend I know who he is. I don't. But apparently he's the fastest running back in the draft. So they got the fastest wide receiver and they got the fastest running back. Of course, Bethel Johnson was the fastest guy in the combine, and he was kind of average. But hopefully this time around, also it didn't matter because, again, when you have Tom Brady, it doesn't matter who you have because he can just pull things out of his ass and win games. And we've seen that over and over throughout the 20-plus years. But we also know that Bill Belichick can draft well at times. I mean, I know So what grade do you give this draft? And I honestly, I give it a B minus. I do. We don't know if these guys can play, but it's, last year was probably an A, and this year was a little lower than that. And we'll see where it goes. Maybe it will change. Maybe if they have a good season, and they surprise everyone, maybe they'll, maybe this draft will be better than a B. I think Mel Kiper made it the lowest grade, but draft analytics. I agree with Mike Felger on the Sports Hub. Guys don't know. Mike Lombardi said N'Keal Harry on his podcast 3 years ago that he was better than DK Metcalf. If you pick N'Keal Harry over DK Metcalf, you're an idiot. DK Metcalf has a better career right now, is a better wide receiver than N'Keal Harry is. Okay? And DK Metcalf was taken later in the draft. N'Keal Harry was a first-round pick. So people don't know what they're talking about. There's and they pretend to know, and they pretend to know what they're talking about, but you don't really know if they can play until you see them on the field. Really, like Mike Lombardi said, if you pick Metcalf over N'Keal Harry, I think he said you're an idiot. Well, he's the idiot for saying that because N'Keal Harry sucks. So, so let me go to the quarterback position, and they did select Bailey Zapp of Western Kentucky, and I want to talk about that because 4 years ago in the 4th round, they also selected a quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, or 3 years ago, and in 2019, Brady was entering in his last year of his contract, and rumors were swirling that Brady was leaving the Patriots after the 2019 season. And then it was rumored that maybe Jarrett Stidham could compete for the starting job. During the 2019 season, Jarrett Stidham was the backup and Brady was the starter. I think Brian Hoyer was third in the roster, was number 3. After the season, Brady went to Tampa. COVID happened. They had a virtual offseason, right? But Jarrett Stidham, during that offseason, didn't take a leadership role. He kind of was a backseat kind of guy and just went with the flow of everything. He seemed to model himself off of, I don't want to talk bad about, his wife and all. And, I think it's Kennedy Stidham. She does her social media influencing on Instagram. And it's come to light that, in my opinion, I think he's more in awe of being a social media influencer and helping his wife out on Instagram, selling her products or whatever that she's doing. Doing things like that. That's what I see in Jarrett Stidham. I don't see a competitive football player. I'm going to keep going. So in 2020, Mac Jones went to a wedding in Texas. And the Patriots were pissed that he went to this wedding in Texas, according to Jimmy Stewart from Felger Mass and 95 The Sports Hub. And this was like in June. So at the end of July, they brought in Cam Newton because they realized that Stidham wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy to take over for Brady. He wasn't prepared. And they were pissed that he went to this wedding in Texas during COVID when he should have been preparing for the season. Okay? So they bring in Cam Newton, and they figure, all right, maybe it will light a fire into Stidham's ass. It didn't. He was in awe of Cam Newton, according to Jimmy Stewart. He was starstruck over Cam. He didn't take any leadership roles. He didn't try and beat Cam out. He didn't try to do anything. He just let Cam Newton run the show. They went 7-9 and missed the playoffs. Brady goes and wins the Super Bowl with Tampa. They spend all this money in free agency. They bring in back Cam Newton because they're pretty much done with Stidham at this point. And they know they need to draft a starting first round. They know they need to draft a quarterback, but maybe not in the first round. Robert Kraft saw that Mac Jones was at 15, and it was like, all right, we got to get Mac Jones. So then they got Mac Jones. They already had Cam Newton, who they signed in March before the draft. After they spent all that money in free agency, or before they spent all that money in free agency, I should say, they re-signed Cam on March 13th, on March 12th, and then on the 15th, they started free agency, and that's when they did that landslide of draft of fucking free agents, right? So they get all the free agents. They draft Mac. He competes with Stidham for the start. So all three of them are competing for the starting job. He beats Jarrett in a landslide, Mac Jones. So now it's between him and Cam. Well, he beat Cam, obviously, because Cam, got COVID, wasn't vaccinated. So he got cut. And obviously, and then they bring in Brian Hoyer, and he's the third string. Jarrett Stidham is third string. He's the third string quarterback. Not the second string, third. So he went from being second string under Brady to third string under Mac Jones. Third string under Mac Jones. Mac Jones yesterday was posting on his Instagram story congratulating the guys. He and Cole Strange went out to dinner the other night, congratulating each draft pick that they picked. Every single one. What was Stidham doing? Being a social media influencer with his wife. And that's fine. That's great. But his contract ends this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make the team. He's cut. He's done. And I know they're friends with David Andrews and they're friends, which is great and all. That's fine. But he doesn't belong on the football field because he's not a leader like Mac Jones is. He came in as a first-round draft pick, and he's already picking it up. He's trying to be a leader. He's not in awe. He's not starstruck. Oh, my God, Tom Brady played here. Like, oh, my goodness. Like, Jarrett Stidham just got his, $3 million that he's making and said, okay, I'm all set. He doesn't have it. So this Bailey kid is going to probably beat out Stidham. I wouldn't be surprised if he beats out Stidham and it's Bailey, Hoyer, and then Mac Jones is your starter. Bailey could be 2. And Brian Hoyer could be the third string / coach because obviously he's the quarterback coach because they don't have an offensive coordinator. So if I'm Jarrett Stidham today, I'm looking on Indeed for jobs. Or if I'm Stidham today, I'm going to my agent and saying, what's up? Or tomorrow, and I'm saying, my job's on the line. And where are we going to go? He could be a backup somewhere, like a second and third string backup. Or he can go on Indeed and find a regular job. I mean, if he likes Foxborough, I guess he could do like TV or something. I mean, he's kind of young, but not young. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't go to school for it, and he's not really of a known player. It's kind of young for him to retire. I think if he went to like Houston or something as a backup, or somewhere like because Nick Casario's in Houston, or Oakland or something, like Josh McDaniels. I don't know. I don't know if McDaniels likes Stidham, but I don't know. Somewhere with some Patriot ties. So, I don't know. He's a good second and third string backup. He's never going to be a starter because he doesn't have the mentality like Mac Jones does of being a leader. And we saw that in 2020, and that's why they had to go to the last minute with Cam Newton. And then they had to fucking, draft a quarterback and go, we got to get back. They went 10-7. And what's Mac Jones doing yesterday? Congratulating every single person, welcoming him to the New England Patriots. What's Stidham doing? Social media influencer. Go be that. Go do that. You obviously don't belong on the football field. He doesn't. He doesn't. So this Bailey kid's going to beat out Stidham, and he's going to lose his football job, and he's going to go do something else. It's going to be Mac Jones, Bryant, or Bailey is going to be probably 2, maybe, or 3, and it's going to be Brian Hoyer. They're not keeping Stidham. I'm sorry, they're not doing it. As for Belichick, Belichick, to me, is making up for his mistakes. Like he drafted that wide receiver, Thornton, and on Friday to make up for N'Keal Harry 3 years ago in the first round. He drafted 2 cornerbacks to make up for weak cornerback play these last few years. I mean, your 2 corners right now are Malcolm Butler, who didn't play last year, Jalen Mills. So at least you have Jack Jones and Marcus Jones now to hopefully beat out Malcolm maybe. Because you don't know if Malcolm... I mean, Butler will probably make the team, I'm assuming. But depending on how he's doing mentally and physically, if he feels like Bill's quitting on him, maybe he'll go back to his old ways like in 2017. Because the Patriots are giving him a chance. They're the only team that gave him a shot. So Malcolm is kissing Belichick's feet, right? So, as of right now, I think their team is still building. I don't think they're done per se adding, because they did add some undrafted players. Slade Bolden did end up going to the Ravens. There was talk that he might go to the Patriots as an undrafted player, but it looks like he's going to the Ravens. E.J. Brown, the Brown University quarterback, went to the Eagles. So, there's a lot of talk about, is this the Patriots team that's going to be going in September? And no, obviously not. There's still a lot of team building to do. There's still a lot of work to do. It's the off-season. Minicamp is in a couple of weeks or a month, I want to say, and then it's training camp, right? The schedule comes out in a couple of weeks. There's a lot of time where they can add some things and subtract some things. I think N'Keal Harry is going to get traded. I don't think it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers for Deebo Samuel. I don't think they're going to do that. Is Odell Beckham going to come here? Who the fuck knows? He jokingly tweeted that Deebo was coming to the Patriots, and everyone was like, no, he's not. And, everyone's he was messing with the Patriots fans. And, he's always talked about wanting to come to the Patriots and wanting to be on the team. It's Myers Belichick, but again, don't have Brady. But, Odell's coming off that ACL, so he's not going to be ready until like November because of the Super Bowl injury. So, who knows, right? But I do think that the team, the Patriots and their competitiveness, the Buffalo Bills are past the Patriots in the AFC East. As of today, I think the Bills will still win the AFC East. As of today, the Jets did awesome in the first round. They won the draft. Doesn't mean that just because they won the draft doesn't mean the players can play. They always seem to have good drafts. Zach Wilson, and he sucked last year. It seems like they improved, and the AFC East in general is improved. Like I said the other night, the AFC East isn't afraid. The Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, they're not afraid of the Patriots. They know that they can beat the Patriots because they don't have Tom Brady. But the thing I like about Mac is he's learning Brady's attributes, meaning he's learning his way of thinking, I think, and he's making it his own. okay? So he's watching Brady's film, all of it, practice, games. He probably watched Man in the Arena, okay? And he's probably never going to say that he's watched Man in the Arena, but he probably has watched Man in the Arena because he gets an inside of what Brady's mentality like, what it was like to be a starting quarterback on this team. And, you know, and because it literally goes through all of the Super Bowls and in his last year at 2020 and when he goes to Tampa. So if you take that and you say, okay, I'm not going to be this guy, but I'm going to take this information and make it my own and be my own leader like he's doing, that is what's going to help him and help the Patriots and help the whole team, right? Whereas Stidham took it as, oh my God, I'm with the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm with the greatest quarterback of all time. This is awesome. Like, oh my goodness, like it was like a cheerleader on the sidelines. Like he's not Mac Jones. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's just a cheerleader. He's a male cheerleader on the sidelines wearing a football uniform. That's what Jarrett Stidham is. So, and that's why they got a 4th-round quarterback again. Stidham's on his last year of his contract. This guy isn't going to pan out because he's not taking it seriously. Go be a social media influencer. Go do something else. That's my opinion. Robert Kraft, again, and here's the other thing. With Kraft, if, you know, the Patriots, if these guys don't pan out, this you know, the players Belichick just drafted, if they don't pan out, and they go 10-6, which I don't think they're going to do, or 6-10. Sorry, 6-10. Does Kraft part ways with Bill? And maybe, right? I think if they have a bad season, I think Bill goes and says, okay, it's a mutual thing. And it gets even worse because I think Matt Patricia gets promoted to being head coach. So if Matt Patricia gets promoted to being head coach, it might turn some heads. Matt Patricia was the one who wanted Cole Strange. They drafted 3 offensive linemen. You know who the offensive lineman coach is? Matt Patricia. Not Dante Scarnecchia. Matt Patricia. I'd rather have David Andrews be the offensive line coach. Excuse me. Than Matt Patricia. Isaiah Wynn's probably gone, right? So the 3 guys they drafted, they hope they can protect Mac Jones because Von Miller's coming twice this year when he went with the Buffalo Bills, you know. Kyer Elam went to the Bills, and the Bills, you know, the Bills are a tough team now. Miami's gotten better. Like I said, all the teams in AFC East are getting better. The Patriots got better, you know, Friday and Saturday. They did better, which is why you can give them a B. The C+, and we don't know if these guys can play yet. So it could be B now, and then a couple of years it could be D. Like 2019, you probably said N'Keal Harry first round, Tom Brady. It's probably an A draft. And now it's a D draft. Last year it was an A draft. Last year they got Mac Jones, Barmore. It was an A draft last year. And it was an A draft at the end of the season. In 2019, it went from A to D because Brady saw N'Keal Harry one time at his house. He's like, all right, this guy can't play. In 2 seconds, in 2 minutes, he knew. In 2 minutes, Brady knew this guy couldn't play. So, it's hard to say if they won the draft or they had a good draft. It's hard to say. I mean, I think they had a good draft, But we won't really know until next year or at the end of the at the end of the 2022 season. We won't know. Maybe in a couple of years, because everyone was like N'Keal Harry, and what didn't really pan out. I mean, Bill was listening to his buddies. There was scouts that didn't want N'Keal Harry, and Bill did it anyway. Then they went collaborative in 2020, and then the other day, he picked. See, Bill has the guys that work with Belichick are people that know him or are friends with Bill, friends, FOBs, friends of Bill. They're friends. Matt Patricia, Matt Groh is Al Groh's son, who used to work with Belichick. Joe Judge is a former assistant of special teams. Nick Caley came up through the organization. So there's a lot of connection with Bill. Draw Mail is a former player. Steve Belichick is his son. They got two sons on the team, Brian and Steve. So a lot going on there. Family and friends. No outside guys. It's just family and friends. So we'll see how it all pans out. We'll see. So I'm going to take a break from this podcast because I'm just going to keep repeating myself every single week if I do this, because until the schedule day. And when the NFL does release its schedule, hold on. I'm looking it up. May 12th. So on May 12th, the NFL will release its schedule, which is a Thursday. That's when I probably will do another podcast. So probably next Thursday, because we'll go through the NFL schedule. We'll see what the Patriots did. If they added anyone, they subtracted anyone. Go through that. And see and guess how many wins they're going to have. In the meantime, the draft was fun. You can follow this podcast. I'll post it on Facebook. It's on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at SteveA1127. Follow all the coverage on nutsandboltsports.com as well. They did a great job. The draft coverage on Nuts and Bolts Sports, pretty much this whole time was awesome. So, make sure you're following Nuts and Bolts Sports for all the football coverage, because their draft coverage was awesome, as usual. So, having said that, you guys can follow me on Twitter at SteveA1127. And I'm going to wrap it up. I'll talk to you guys next Thursday. Have a good night.